get started and we'll see who else joins in.
Okay.
All right. So we'll bring the, finally, our May meeting of the Doylestown Township Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to order. Andrea, you can see already who's here, right? So we have 3 of us, so we have enough for a meeting.
Would you like me to take the minutes?
We had talked last time that the 3 new people would split it. I mean,
Right.
do it this time if you want.
That'd be great, and then we'll definitely make sure one of the other ones gets stuck with it next time.
Yeah. If you can send me a draft, Jenny, if
Sure.
you can send me a draft by, I guess we can, technically we're supposed to have them up in 48 hours, but because it's going to be the weekend and everything, I think we can wait till Tuesday. I think it'll be fine because this is being recorded. Don't forget.
Okay, well, let's see. Wally, you weren't here last time, so
Correct.
between, Jen, did you get a chance to read through the meeting minutes from last time?
Oh, yeah. Do we officially approve them?
Yes.
Well, then I'll make a motion to approve then.
All right, I will make the motion to second it, being that Wally wasn't here. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was gonna say, you better not change your mind now.
By the way, if Stephanie did the minutes, it was a great job. I mean, it was great for me to pick up on everything.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go on to the first thing, which would be an update on the Pebble Ridge Woodridge project. Basically, we had a meeting with John Butler and Bucks County Water and Sewer a little over a week ago, and they are still about 9 weeks behind on the overall schedule. So the last map that you were provided with all the different colors on it and with the dates that were revised, that's still the current map that we're working off of from a timing standpoint. They, basically it's all weather and rock related. They had a lot of problems back in the, in back of Old New Road in the areas that we're doing the easements with being able to get back there. Just because of all the rain, the ground just wouldn't support the equipment. And they've just continued to hit rock along the way. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, I don't think that they were anticipating really picking up any of that time between now and the end of the project at the moment.
No, not really. I mean, between the pandemic, even though they were only down a week or so, with the pandemic closure and the weather, really in the easement area, which they need to bring the pipes up from the, pump station, that just, it's so wet that it really slowed them down. And then of course the rock on some of the other streets and everything. So Keith and I were out there yesterday, met with John Butler and a resident on Westway, and they're expecting that within 3 to 4 weeks they'll be on Westway coming up, and that probably take them about a month or so to get up Westway. And I have to say, driving down, every time I go out there, I completely forget, like, Westway is a really long street.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to take them some time to get through there and everything. But I think they're thinking, Keith, what, like end of July-ish, they should be done. And then they tie that into the manhole that's there that'll flow to the Castle Valley. And so probably if knock on wood, if everything goes well, I'm thinking that maybe the people on Westway could be connecting maybe, and as soon as they test the pump station and everything, it could be maybe like August, give or take.
Right. Jen, you can just reference in the minutes to check for residents to check the Bucks County Water and Sewer or the Doylestown Township website. Both websites have a link that takes you right to the map. that shows you all the updated dates and projections.
Mhm. And they do, don't forget, they do a weekly update for us. And one of the things, you know, they're gonna do is they're gonna do a little special statement just for the Westaway folks. We asked them to do that yesterday when we were out there.
I think it's a little harder doing the install now down to Westaway because they are putting 2 lines in the street. They're putting a sanitary sewer line and they're putting a forced main in. So that's just going to take a little slower, and it's basically like I've always said, why don't we put water and sewer in the same pipeline? It's because it is 2 different operations. So you know, that hopefully they can make it down by July. You know, with nice weather, the weather's getting nicer. So, and hopefully the rock, they already drilled Westaway, as Jenny knows. So let's, you know, hopefully keep our fingers crossed.
Good.
Yeah, I forgot about the two pipes, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the second one that's going? They're not putting in 2 everywhere? They're just,
No,
No.
because if you think of Westaway, if you think of Westaway and where like Woodridge is the connection to the Pebble Ridge that takes you to Alms House, which gets you to the Castle Valley Interceptor that gets you to the treatment station. Westaway is bringing everything, it's almost everything's flowing to Westaway. And then it's got the main line that's gonna whoosh the sewer in that force main to the transition point on Woodridge to get it to the Castle Valley Interceptor.
Right.
So it's got your sewage,
you're-
it's got the sewage from the houses. Okay, that's
Right.
one line. And then it's gonna have this, what's called a force main. And that's gonna be, as I say, whooshing the sewer to, that's a very technical term, whooshing the sewer,
yeah.
sewage to the other lines. Right, Keith?
So when Jenny, when you flush the toilet, it is going to that pump station on Lower State Road. And then it is getting pumped right past your house to a manhole at Westaway and Woodridge. That's the way it's working.
So it's taking the scenic route.
Yes.
You can wave to it both times.
Except that when it comes back by your
God.
house,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
moving much faster.
yeah.
Yeah,
So your residents on the other side of Woodridge, when they flush the toilet, it's going right to the sanitary sewer line to the Castle Valley Interceptor. So they do not go
Yeah.
to that interceptor or to the pump station. Sorry.
they're on the other side, yeah.
Yeah.
They flow gravity on the other side. I don't know if there's another technical term, Keith, you are the engineer versus whooshing the sewer. Yeah, yeah.
No, flushing's good.
Oh, flushing's good, okay. Use flushing, Jen, not whooshing. Whoosh.
So that's for Westaway. What's the updated? I'm sorry, I haven't looked in the last few weeks. What's the updated expectation for when it's like all the streets are done? Because we're not the last street, right?
No.
No, it finishes, it ends up, my end, the end of the old new road where I'm at is one of the last sections before in this area. Then they're going to go back over to Alms House and finish up in that area, the upper part of Alms House there.
Yeah, that'll be
I
the
think
end.
we're probably looking at the end of the year at this point, if
Mhm.
all goes well. Anything else on Pebble Ridge, Woodridge? Okay, Steph, you want to talk about the 537 plan and what Bucks County Water and Sewer is looking for here?
Yeah, I spoke with, or actually just emailed with John Butler and John Swenson from Carroll Engineering and said, you know, can we get an update? They're working on it, but John came back with a comment that he'd like to see sort of what's the progress for the residents in that area, you know, what's the feeling, you know, and I guess going out and starting to communicate, which I thought we'd have a little bit more information before we, you know, move that forward. But, you know, that's always, you know, because everybody wants details and we have very limited details. So, you know, I would, you know, like him, maybe have him participate in the next meeting and kind of, you know, because we've provided them with all the information they asked for to
Right.
date, and we made you know, the recommendation from this committee about the different areas and where things, you know, if this, then that, you know, remember the gray, purple, remember
Yeah,
the
well, we
mapping
did
they
it
gave us?
based on their recommendations also. They
Recommendations,
were
right.
involved in,
Mm-hmm,
in reviewing
exactly.
the maps and
Right.
all the future development area.
Yeah, so we've provided them all that. We provided our, you know, septic management information. We've provided all the data. So I mean, I think they're calling that, you know, and writing, hopefully writing that up. But that's what John said. I think, you know, I think what probably needs to happen is sort of an evaluation of, you know, where are we at, why are we doing this, that kind of thing. I think that would probably be a better next step to share with people, you know, and maybe I can get them to work on something that maybe they could help us with, like a newsletter article for the next newsletter, not the one we're doing now, but the following one.
This would be, I'm sorry, just for the purposes of the notes here. I just want to make sure.
Mhm.
This is Pennsylvania DEP you're asking to help? Like, who are you asking?
We have to comply with DP for our overall 537 plan. So we're in the process. Ours is 20 years old, basically. And so you can make amendments to your plan, which we've done, but we want to, you know, take all the information, especially with the big Pebble Ridge, Woodridge update and everything. And we want to update the entire plan itself and come up with a new plan and how the township should tackle, how it's going to handle its sewage facilities for the next 5 and 10 years, basically.
Mhm.
And Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority will do all of the like report work for us for free.
Okay.
And they use, they're using Carroll Engineering to do the actual, you know, updates and stuff. And I mean, the reports are yay big. So, you know, and there has to be public meetings and stuff like that before but he mentioned, and I think he was maybe referring to, there's a small section, is it the Turk Road area, Andrea, right around Turk and Sowerman, where we did the study to see about, you know, what it would take to kind of get that into, because there's some sewer lines out there. So we
Was
talked
it
about,
that or the Edison area? Is that,
well, Edison came up as well as another
Okay.
area
yeah,
those
I
are-
think,
those are-
yeah,
those-
that area,
now.
those two areas.
Yeah,
Well, Edison came up because of the problems that the residents are having
yes.
in that area there.
And that we should, and, you know, the health department, yeah, I think they've been, you know, I don't know what they were doing, working on trying to address it. I mean, one of the things that's kind of come up is there's a private pump station. There's Suet, like where the 7-Eleven and the Midas Muffler are and all that.
Yeah,
They
I
have
thought the
to-
guy who owned the 7-Eleven has that, right?
Yeah, and so actually no, I think it's somebody else. But you know, the private pump station there is, lack of a better words, broken, and they've been kind of pumping it out and everything. And so we got a complaint in from one of the tenants in the area, and so we brought Bucks County Health Department in on it, and he's been out there, and Sinclair's been out there, and you know, they're gonna have a company, the owner has to have a company come out and do some pumping of it and everything, and then Brendan will do some inspections, and they're probably it needs to be corrected and upgraded. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, 40 some years old, and, you know, probably been neglected. But if it were, you know, if it were upgraded and updated, and if the gentleman would talk to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, we could possibly use that for the other people in that neighborhood, along Quarry and Edison to, you know, possibly put a sewer system in there and come down and utilize that pump station to get to the, you know, treatment plant over at
Has
Kings
Bucks
Plaza.
County Water and Sewer approached the owner of the pump station at all regarding that?
They've been in on the emails back and forth with the property owner, but it is a private system, and they have reached out at one point, and they were told to go pound sand. So, you know, we'll see if possibly through this process, you know, now that Bucks County Health Department's involved, maybe they can, you know, we can maybe get it to move a little bit.
Mhm.
Stephanie,
So what's
where are
this-
where are they pumping it to? Where are they pumping it to?
It pumps across the street and it goes into the Kings Plaza plant behind Barn Plaza.
Now, do they have to pay to pump it into that?
They have to pay? No.
I mean,
It was all designed that way when it was when that like 1776 shopping center
okay,
and, you know, 7-Eleven and Midas Muffler were built.
okay.
Yeah.
So
they
they're
tried
just
to be
paying,
sort
they're
of-
paying a monthly fee for pumping it in there. But it's not
Yeah.
pumping, it's really a holding tank right now.
well, it's not functioning properly, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Andrea, you've been communicating with Brendan somewhat and the tenant. I don't know if you've spoken to the owner, but Brendan's emails, I mean, and what John's commented is it could be expensive to fix it. So if you're, you know,
Yeah.
a private business, it could be difficult.
Yeah, it seems that they've just been putting a Band-Aid on the situation for quite a while, but it's getting to a point where, you know, if the health department and if the township feels we need to take further action, you know, and contact DEP, then we might have to do that if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
So Steph, going back to the request from Bucks County, what is it, this notation about polling of the neighbors?
That's all, when I said, you know, can we get an update on it? John, let me go to my emails, it'll probably be easier. To refresh my.
The neighbors are gonna worry about what's the cost and when it's being
I
done.
know.
When'd
I
you
don't
bring
want-
up anything?
I
don't
think the
wanna
whole
open-
purpose of the 537 plan, the update we were doing, is really to lay out this roadmap for the future.
Yep.
And then as the need starts to become, you know, prevalent, that this way you already have the roadmap done. You already know what the next stage is and
Mhm.
how it can be
Yeah.
developed. I don't want
It's
to
kind
really
yeah,
start.
so when Joe,
Premature.
when I for update, you know, like, is there any updates I could share with the committee? He said, I'd like to see some movement on the next phase in regards to polling of the neighbors if possible.
Who would be doing that polling?
Last time we had done it through the township.
Yeah.
Steph, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I mean, to me, I think it's a little premature. I'd rather
I do
see,
too.
I'd rather get the 537 plan just completed. Everybody sign off and agree on what future development could look like. And then, you know, let's get this one project finished first and
Mhm.
then talk about, you know, looking at putting the 537 plan into action. And we still gotta, I mean, by the time the 537 gets done and it gets all put together and signed off on and submitted to the state, the year
Yeah.
out right there.
Yeah. I'll tell him we think it's premature and that we would like to see more of the document for, you know, in a format that could be shared and started to be reviewed and everything like that. Because I know under the current,
I think it's just a stall tactic. Yeah.
hmm?
I think it's more of a stall tactic. He's waiting for us to do something else instead of him
Mhm.
working on what he.
No, I think they're working on the stuff, but we'll,
Yeah.
you know, we'll get them to move on it.
Sorry, Stephanie, while we're there, I had written,
Mhm.
he thought that a good next step would be putting together kind of a document, like where are we now? Why are we doing this? Are you suggesting that the Bucks County Water and Sewer puts that together or
Yes,
together?
yes, they could help us prepare something. You know,
All right. So you'll reach out to them, let them know that we don't feel comfortable,
mhm.
we want
We're
to
not
get
ready for
the
that.
actual 537, the meat and potatoes of the plan put together before going out and talking to anybody.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right, anything else on the 537 plan?
nope.
All right. The water study. So I guess the first thing would be, just to back into this, would be, has there been any further movement, Stephanie or Keith, on the well, private well testing in the township, the ordinance that had been floated at the end of last year?
It's in abeyance at the moment. It, I think it was just kind of a little, there was too much to go into it and everything, and I think with the board changing, it was just everybody kind of wanted to take a step back and have more just information gathered and hope that the Public Water and Sewer Advisory Board could do that.
Okay. All right, well, that's no problem with that. And that's originally where the idea came from in the first place. But
Mhm.
it sort of got pulled away from us and fast tracked through. So
Yeah,
knowing that that's the case, we'll go back to the way we usually put things together, put some of the research together, see what other states and other people
Mhm.
within Pennsylvania are doing also, and then come back with a recommendation.
Yeah, Keith, do you have anything to add there?
I think that's what the supervisors, they tabled the action on the ordinance, but they encouraged us to, I guess, both the Public Water and Sewer Committee and DTMA to look at educational outreach that we can do to make sure that residents are testing their private wells and what should they be testing for, and just overall reminding them that it's a good idea to do that. Not just when you go to sell your house, but yearly or annually, whatever the DEP and EPA recommends. So, we will in the future. We kind of got sidetracked here, but trying to get stuff maybe on social media or through leaflets,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, one of the things that the EAC does a lot is they put together brochures. And Andrea, maybe you could share with the committee some of the brochures that the EAC has put together on on bugs
Yeah.
and plants
Yeah.
and things like that. And maybe if you shared that, perhaps the committee could do something similar to water.
Definitely. I do think that brochures are a good way to put a lot of information in a small document. Easy to, scan as a PDF. People can download it. You can, potentially send it as a mailer if that was something you were interested in too.
Yeah.
But the EAC has made various brochures on ticks and Lyme's disease, which has been a very interesting pamphlet, as well as a native plant brochure, which is a lot more. There's a lot of pictures and information in it, but I think if you guys wanted to, focus on water quality and things like that, I would be more than happy to draft something up. But I would need the content, from you guys, and if you sent me content, I could draft something up for sure.
Okay. Well, maybe at a future meeting, maybe next month, or we can put on the agenda to, just maybe an outline or something that we're thinking of, could be placed in a pamphlet.
Do we know what we're
PMDA
testing
would
for?
have anything?
Yeah. get a list of what we're testing, need to test for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Keith
it-
has that.
Yep,
Mhm.
in the ordinance that we drafted, we had a list of 6 or 7 contaminants that homeowners should be checking for, that, for example, PFAS or volatile organic compounds, iron and manganese, just some contaminants that affect your health. Others are more for the aesthetic purposes. A lot of private well owners within Doylestown have high iron in their water. The water comes out with rust. Joe, I think you had a sulfur smell, a couple months
Right.
ago. So just something that, maybe we can put together and recommend that they test for the, not the thousands of dollars worth of testing, but just something that's practical.
Could you get
Would PMAA be a resource for this?
Not really, because they represent the authorities. So we're in it. This is why it was always tough from my authority hat. We're looking out for our public wells, and sometimes you can't sample for the contaminants that are in a public well that are in a private well. It's just doesn't make sense for somebody to sample radium every year like we have to sample for. So maybe there might be a different organization like the American Groundwater Trust. They might be somebody we could reach out to. I'll talk with Andrea about that. And,
If you come up with, I know because you got your hands full, if you come up with a couple suggestions like that and can give me either a link or a contact person, I'll be more than happy to make those calls.
Okay.
Send the emails and get started on that.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just very cutting edge. Sorry, Stephanie. I went to a water quality conference back in November, and I only saw one other state that it was in the process of contemplating regulating private wells. It's kind of a wild west of water. It's just you don't touch private wells, and there's no real enforcement, or there's some guidance out there. So maybe we can just provide some nice guidance for our residents.
Okay.
Can the committee get copies of the temporary or the proposed ordinance, just so we know what we're looking at?
Yeah, certainly. We could do that.
Yeah, just so then we know, give us a more education as far as what we're looking at and what the proposal is.
Okay. Stephanie, do you have a problem with that, Stephanie? I guess
No.
I shouldn't say it. I mean, it's a township ordinance, so.
Yes, well, it hasn't been put through officially.
No.
has it?
No, it
No,
hasn't. It has
didn't.
not been adopted. So, but we
Yeah.
can share it. I know that in the fall, Wally, I thought I sent it to you and to
Yeah, I think you
Gary.
did.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because Keith gave it to me and I forwarded it out what the contaminants were to be checked for. Just that list of things.
Okay.
So is the draft already part of the public record, Stephanie?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it was in the boards. It was discussed at board meetings and stuff. So yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure before we start handing it out, and
Yeah.
I don't want to, I want to make sure.
Yeah, no, we would
This is a
mark
working-
it up. We'll
it's a work in
watermark it
progress.
before it goes anywhere or out,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Jen, Wally, did either of you get a chance to do any research on your own regarding the topic since we last talked?
I did something only from the minutes. I sent you a copy of it. It was just
Yeah,
something
I got yours, but I didn't know if you had anything else that you, or if you wanted to
No, I
share anything at this
just,
point.
that was my first stab, just quick.
Okay.
Sure. So, I mean, I looked around a little bit just to see kind of what's out there in terms
Guys,
of.
excuse me one second. I'm sorry. I've been working on a real big problem today. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Okay,
Hey, Art, how you doing?
go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I
Go
wasn't sure if
ahead.
I should wait for him or if I should.
No, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
All right, yeah, I wasn't entirely sure exactly what I was looking for. I just kind of searched around to see what information is already out there in terms of materials about, caring for your well and what you should test for. I mean, what I found is that the extension offices at various states seem to be a good resource. Like a lot of them seem to have educational material already on their websites. Penn State had one. Our state extension office, actually the Missouri one seemed really good. It gave some more detailed information about what you should be testing for, how often, and that type of thing. So that may be a resource that we could use.
He's leaving. He had he has.
Yeah, Jen, if you can share that at like our next meeting, that would be great. And then Andrea, I think if you share the stuff that the EAC has done, that would be great too.
Mhm.
Just to get an idea of what the brochures.
Yeah, because I think with
Yeah.
the brochures we want to be informative, but we also want to provide resources for the residents to then go do research on their own as well. So having even just, a resource area with links or the names of the places where they should be going is just as good as, quoting some of the information from those resources.
So you're thinking it's around 12 million to go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can have those extensions on there or another link. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I'm sure the EPA too. I mean, they
Yep.
probably have
It's hoping it might be earlier. But it's only,
the water associations.
okay, it's only 14-hour drive, right?
Joe forgot to mute
Even-
himself.
I know.
Ah,
So,
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
Steph, do you mute
Okay,
him?
yeah, 'cause I'm looking at it, it's only, within the next 2 hours, they have to leave out there. So even if they were the last thing loaded at 5 o'clock.
You didn't, hang on a second. Let
Can
me
you
see.
mute him, Stephanie?
I'm hoping it's a little
Huh?
earlier.
Can you mute him?
I can mute all of you.
Oh, okay, all right. I was just
I don't know
curious.
if I can mute him.
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
maybe in the
Yeah,
speaker
I
group.
did. I took care of it. I
Oh,
muted
there
him.
you go.
Good.
I didn't know I could do that on there. I've never had to do that.
Look how much power you have.
I know. I have to practice this more. I know. I want to stop zooming, but that's okay. So that's really kind of all we have on the agenda. Oh, he's back. Hold on. I gotta unmute him.
You need to be bothered with it, but it's a hot delivery that I've been trying to get coordinated from California to El Paso. And
Not
it's
a problem.
a nightmare.
hmm
Okay.
Okay. So, Joe, while you stepped away, we talked about Jenny had done some little bit of research and found some of the extensions, like the Penn State extension, for example, has some resources, and that Andrea would send out the brochures from what the EAC does as samples. And then at the next meeting, we could, as Keith suggested, create an outline and take some of the detailed information. Like if Jenny sends the links to Andrea or whatever, we can kind of come up with like a little layout of what we think it could be.
Yeah, well, some of that's similar to what we did with the education on the septic systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same thing, how we put together the information that's on the current website.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Any other topics anybody wants to bring up to the table?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so
What
our,
about the COVID?
Oh yeah. We're following up. And I wish it was on. Mr. Canterbury had
yes,
sent an email,
right.
and Andrea spoke. Andrea, why don't you
Sure.
share that information?
Sure.
What Mr. Canterbury asked and everything.
Okay. So Mr. Canterbury had reached out and asked about the potential of sampling and being able to see if our water has any traces of COVID. So I'm not sure if anyone saw some of the news articles that has come out recently, but they're able to apparently see if there's kind of hot spots of COVID in communities by testing the wastewater and the stormwater and things like that. So I reached out to GHD, and they're the ones who do our sampling for our MS4. And after going back and forth and speaking with them, basically the summary of what they came back with was that there is a potential of performing water tests for the virus. And they have worked with a lab in Florida that can analyze the water for the COVID-19. But these tests determine if RNA segments unique to COVID are present, but they can't determine if the virus is still viable or inactivated. So really all that the test would answer is yes or no. That these are similar to the DNA tests that they do for our MS4 program. And he did give us some costs, which seem relatively low. And though it seems cheap, remembering that the testing will use the genetic approach to measure the RNA. And as a result, the labs will not be able to differentiate between viable and inactive viruses. They did mention that there is another testing available that would measure the viability, but it's in high security labs, and we don't want to use that as they're strictly being used for medical needs, and they do cost a lot. So that was the information that I got from GHD, and I thought I'd share it with you. And as the advisory committee, if you guys felt the need for moving forward with that, or wanted to have more discussion or more information from GHD, then we could maybe ask him for some more information.
So my initial thought to that, after listening to you and having read through what John sent up, I don't know what our benefit is. I don't know what we get out of it as a community. So let's say test
It might cause more problems. Yeah.
just like what we do for testing for the fecal coliform. So if we test it and we know that it's in the outflow, I don't know what we do with that information.
Definitely. And that's what Stephanie and I were discussing, that, we already know it's in our community. So it probably would show up in the water potentially, because we know it's here in our community. And, then we might have people looking for, some kind of answers or some kind of remedy that we are unable to provide. So I agree with you.
It might cause more problems than it's worth.
Yeah.
Keith, what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just going to cause more mass hysteria. People are going to extrapolate it to water systems. I think the average person does not know the difference between a wastewater and a water system. So you hear the word COVID in water, and even if it's
that's a good point.
A storm outfall, I think we've proven that it's not in the public water. Chlorine inactivates COVID. So we have to remember that a lot of wastewater treatment plants, they all have to use chlorine now. So it may be detected, but they're also inactivating it before it goes out into the streams and the outfalls. So some of that water is almost clean enough to drink coming out of these wastewater treatment plants. So
Yeah, I think where John was going with it, Keith, was from on-lot disposal systems on the old. So private properties with on-lot disposal systems, and it going into the storm, which is what we look for is in the storm system. So, that's probably what he was getting at.
okay, but I think it's just I think it'll get clouded very quickly.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Andrew hits the nail on the head with, okay, so it's there,
What do you do with it?
We're already
Right.
doing TMDL reduction for sediment loads in the storm, into the creeks and stuff like that to meet our stormwater requirements. We're doing stream bank stabilization and various BMPs to help reduce, you know, storm, you know, impacts on stormwater and everything. I think this is something else that, you know, I mean, that's, you know, over the next 5 to 6 years, we're spending what, Andrea, $2 million?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, please don't put putting
Yeah,
something else on. the
you
plate
know,
that
it's
we
going to be an
can't deal with.
it's going to be an unfunded mandate if it ever comes.
If
and
they
you're-
had that on, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just no way.
yeah,
All
I
right, so
don't,
I think we're all in agreement that
Yeah.
move forward with making any recommendations with regards to.
Let's make sure we word the minutes accordingly.
I will reach out to John and just have a conversation with him
Okay.
tomorrow over the weekend, just to bring him up to
Mhm.
speed on what we discussed and what our thoughts were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, our next meeting, I was just checking, so it will be coming up. It's on June the 18th. And again, that's at 5:30. I'm hoping by then, and Keith had mentioned actually during our DTMA meeting, that we could actually go back to meeting in person over at the township building for that meeting.
Yeah.
But we'll play it by ear and, you know, make sure everybody feels comfortable and safe in doing so. Okay?
Good.
Great.
Okay, sounds
Right,
good.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Jenny, for
you.
taking minutes.
yep.
Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a good
Bye.
weekend.
Take care. Good job.